Should I do two of them? Like,
yeah, two, but close up. Do it slowly. All right, ready and action.
hey everybody, welcome back to the Chef Smarty Pants Academy. Thanks so much for tuning in and subscribing and all those things. So the past couple weeks, we've been covering basic techniques. This is school, it's an academy. And what I want to talk about today is chicken stock, okay? How to make your own stock. Because stock is one of those things that is so useful in the kitchen. You can use it as the base for a sauce, and I'll be doing that in a couple of episodes from now. But it's also the base for soups, for cooking risotto. You can cook pasta in it, you can cook rice in it. Stock is super useful. When I used to work in restaurants, stock was like our number one most important ingredient, really, after kosher salt, of course. And I was the sous chef and saucier, so I had to make the stocks. Now, I used to have to make stocks in like hot tubs, like 50-gallon massive, like I could have bathed in the pot. But at home, you can make your stock in a smaller pot. Like I'm just going to use this. This is my little rondeau. And this is a good sized pot. Something taller and narrower is ideal too. Whatever you have, any kind of pot, that's going to work. But you should make your own stock, people, because it's easy and it's so useful. And then you just freeze it and you keep it in your freezer and then you have stock. Okay, the stuff in the box, it's okay in a pinch, but make your own. Now, we're making chicken stock today. There are lots of different kinds of stock, of course. There's veg, there's fish, there's brown veal, there's white veal. Chicken stock is the most useful. Down the road, we'll get into some of the other ones. What do you make your chicken stock out of? Well, you make it out of bones, okay? Now, I just happened to come into a bag of chicken feet. And chicken feet are great for stock. They're not the easiest thing to find. But if you just happen to stumble upon a pile of chicken feet, you can grab those. But stocks are made from bones. The reason we use bones is that bones are full of collagen. And when you put collagen into water and you heat it up, the collagen melts. And when the collagen melts, what does it turn into? Yes, that's correct. It turns into gelatin. And that gelatin is what gives body to your stock. Okay, commercial chicken stocks, very low in collagen. They don't really have any body to them. Okay, so what bones do you use? You want to use the bones from the parts of the animal that get the most movement, okay, that are the most articulated. So on a chicken, of course, feet. Feet are basically all collagen, but things like necks and backs are really great because they're very articulated, lots of collagen. Wings work pretty well too, but chicken wings have actually gotten quite expensive. I went to my local butcher. I said, do you have chicken necks and backs? They said, how much do you want? $3. They gave me this little pile of chicken necks here. I know they're not the prettiest, most attractive. Oops, whoops, get back here. But they're really great in stock. What you don't want to use is like those little like leg bones because they're just kind of like hollow pipes. They don't have a lot going on. Okay, if you can't get necks, backs, feet, you can just use a couple packs of wings too. That's okay. Okay, now here's our bones. I got my bones set aside. The other component of a good chicken stock is what we call mirepoix. mirepoix. Mirepoix, okay? Mirepoix is a combination of vegetables, classically onions, carrots, and celery. There are other types of mirepoix too, but this is the classic one for this. Onions, carrots, and celery. And then we add what we call aromatics. And aromatics are a couple of bay leaves, some black peppercorns can go in there, and parsley stems. We use the stems, not the leaves, because you want kind of a nice neutral herbal flavor, but the leaves would add too much color. It could turn your stock green. So we use the stems. It's also a good way to use up your scrap, right? You could put in a couple of thyme sprigs if you had that, but what you want to avoid when you're making stocks is things that have a very distinctive flavor. So no rosemary, no cilantro, no chilies, no garlic, unless you know that every single thing you're going to make from the stock, you want to taste like rosemary, garlic, cilantro, then this is your stock. You're in your own home. You do you. Okay, put it in there. But you want to think of your stocks almost as like a neutral like background, like a blank canvas, okay, that you can paint your culinary dreams onto. Yeah. Okay, so your mirepoix. you need to cut up your mirepoix. Now, the size of your mirepoix matters. Yes, size matters. The size of your mirepoix is directly related to how long you're going to cook your stock. Okay, now a good chicken stock takes 3-4 hours to cook, pretty much. If we were doing like a veal stock, our bones would be huge like this. It's more like 12 hours. Okay, if I was doing like a fish stock, that's like 30 minutes. So for fish stock, I'd cut my mirepoix up really small. For veal stock, I could even leave these vegetables whole. For chicken stock, it's somewhere right in the middle, generally sort of 1 inch to 2 inches, okay? You don't want to obsess about size, but, you know. So you just can do like just a rough chop on this. You don't have to worry about dicing. And for stocks, I peel because you want your stock to be nice and clean. Okay, so I'm doing, maybe like inch to like a 1/2 inch thick, like that. Okay, now you can also do your stock in a pressure cooker. If you have like a pressure cooker, like a multi-cooker kind of thing, you can make stocks in there and they're really fast because the pressure extracts everything. So if you have one of those, you can do it in there in like an hour. Okay, but I'm doing it on the stove. So just like a rough chop, carrots, celery, and onions. And remember, we talked about knife skills a lot a few episodes ago in episodes 1 and 2. That was all about knife skills. So go back and review if you missed that lesson, people, because it's going to be on the final. Okay. And then an onion. So what's the ratio here? So a good basic ratio is for every, let's say, 3 to 4 pounds of bones, you can use about 1 pound of mirepoix. But, don't obsess about it. Like, don't go crazy. Don't go weighing your stuff. Okay, we can, hold on. This is awkward. And as far as the onions, you want to use your basic like yellow or white onion. Don't use red onions. They will turn your stock a very ugly color. Okay, you could also use leeks if you had leeks, but a yellow or a white onion. And your ratio should be like 50% onion and then 25 carrots and celery. Again, don't obsess, okay? Life is complicated enough. Now, to peel or not to peel the onion. If your onions are nice and clean and the peel looks good, it's not moldy, it's not dusty, you can actually leave some of that skin on your onion because that adds really nice color to your stock. Onion skins give off pigments and you get a nice color from your stock, so you can do that. But if your onions look, sometimes they can be like a little moldy under the skin. If they don't look very clean, don't do it, okay? So again, like just kind of a rough chop. This is not how I normally dice an onion, which I showed you back in episodes 1 and 2. I'm just going for the rough cut here. Okay, so just quick chop like that, a little bit of peel. There we go. We're at about 50% onions, 25. Maybe that's a little extra on the carrot. We'll have a snack. Okay, I got my little aromatics there. Now I'm going to get my pot. Now the first thing we do here is we get the bones in the pot. We cover them with cold water and we get those on the stove first. Okay, you want to cook the bones first in cold water. Why cold water? Because the bones can have blood inside of them and sort of other impurities, and that all dissolves in cold water. So if you get your bones into the pot, you cover with cold water, you start heating that up. The cold water dissolves the blood floats to the top. It creates a very attractively named scum. We skim that scum off, then we add the mirepoix. Okay, because if you put it all in together, what happens is the mirepoix floats and then it gets all mixed in with that scum and it makes it very hard to clean the scum out. So we always do the bones first. So I'm going to get my bones in my pot. I'm going to cover with cold water. I'm going to get it on the stove. We'll get simmering. I'll meet you over there in a minute. Cut. What's that? Okay, I'm throwing my bones and my feet in my pot. I'm not going to use all these feet. There's a lot of, it's like too much on the feet. I'm going to freeze them and use them down the road. I'm going to go wash my hands, of course, because, raw chicken. Don't leave comments about me and my hygiene because I am washing my hands, but leave comments if they're good ones. Then I'm going to top this with cold water. I'm going to go like a good 2-3 inches above the bones with cold water. We're going to go to the stove. We're going to bring that to a simmer. I'll see you there. Transferring.
Yeah.
Okay, so this came up to a nice simmer. Remember, a simmer is below a boil. We don't want to roll. We don't want to get that scum rolling back in. We want just gentle bubbling. Now I'm going to take my spoon and just carefully skim the scum. That scum is basically blood that's come out of the bones and some other dissolved proteins, impurities. You don't have to go after the fat though. The fat is the clear yellow puddles floating on top. You can leave that fat in there. That's fine. The fat comes out later. Actually, after we chill this and the fat solidifies, you can lift it right off. But when you're storing your stock in the fridge, leaving that fat on top is good because it makes like a protective layer. It actually keeps it fresher. And then, of course, that fat is great for cooking too. That's your schmaltz, people. We're here in Brooklyn. We're all about the schmaltz. You can save that and you can cook potatoes with it or put it on bread or something like that. So most of the scum has been skimmed, and you can always go back in as you do it and take more out. Now I'm going to add the mirepoix. Now the mirepoix is going to cool this down. So I'll turn my heat up just a bit, and I'm going to bring this back up to a simmer. Now, how long do I go from here? That all depends on the size of the volume, size of the pot that we're doing, right? So this is really small. This is like a gallon. 2 hours is fine. If I were doing like a big stock pot, 5, 10, 50 gallons, we'd have to add on time because you would need an hour just for it to come back up to that simmer. So when I used to do this in restaurants, I would go like 6 to 8 hours for chicken stock, but this we could probably do 2, anywhere between 2 and 4 is fine. So we're going to bring this back up to a simmer. We're going to set the clock, and we'll see you in a couple of hours. All right, so here is my stock, and this was on the burner for, it was almost 3 hours actually, so it's going to be really good. It has reduced quite a bit. At one point I did top it off with some more water, but it has reduced, and reduction in stock is good because that makes it more concentrated and stronger in gelatin. So what I want to do now is strain it, and I could just pick it up and pour it, but I'm only going to strain a little bit of this out just to show you. So I'm going to just strain some of it. But what you want to do is let it cool down a bit in the pot first. It's just going to be safer. You don't want to be picking up a big boiling, steaming pot of liquid. That's dangerous. Okay. But strain it out. And what I would recommend is actually straining it into several smaller containers. That's going to help it to cool faster. You actually want to cool this down as fast as you can because you never want to keep hot food in what's called the danger zone, which is like 40 to 140 Fahrenheit. So what you want to do is break it out into small containers, and you could even put some cold water in your sink and set your containers in that if you wanted to. In restaurants, we would set up like a big ice bath and we would stick it in pots in there. But let it cool down, and then once it's cool, you got to pack it up. You can put it in plastic containers, you could put it in jars, but make sure the jars have straight sides, no shoulders, because if you freeze it, that'll explode in the freezer. So straight-sided jars for freezing. Containers, you could go in Ziploc bags, you could go in ice cube trays, whatever you want to do. And then you can either put it in the fridge. It'll keep in the fridge for 2 weeks max, but it's better to freeze. So cool it down, put it in the freezer, and then you can use it all winter to make soup. If you freeze in small enough amounts that you'd just be able to like pull it out and use it, right? Like don't put like a 5-gallon pail in your freezer because then you're going to have to get like an ice pick and hack away at it, right? So freeze in manageable sizes. Now, as this cools, the fat is rising to the top. Some people go in and skim that fat off. I leave that fat because when this chills, the fat's going to solidify, and that creates an extra level of preservation. It like seals it up, it keeps the air off of it. That keeps it fresher longer. So don't take that fat off yet. Let it solidify. Then if you want to take that fat off, like I said earlier, you could use it. You could like roast potatoes with it or saute fish with it. It's really good. My mom was born in Russia, and like she said one of her favorite treats as a kid was rye bread spread with chicken fat. I don't know. It was like 1940 Russia. But definitely save that fat because it's really useful. Now, another thing you can do with stock, which is a restaurant trick, is that once you have this strained, you could put it back in the pot, and then you could boil it down. You could actually reduce it down in volume and make a concentrate. The benefit of doing that is that then it takes up a lot less space in your fridge, but also you have a concentrated product. So when you go to make a sauce from it, you don't have to wait for it to reduce on the stove so much. I have a pan sauce video coming up, and you'll be able to see me do that. But if you pre-reduce your stock, that way you have a concentrate, takes up less space, it's easier to use. You can always add water to it and bring it back to the original strength, like if you want to make soup from it or something like that, okay? So people, you can see this is not difficult. You too can make chicken stock. Some like cold, rainy, miserable Sunday. instead of just mindlessly scrolling your phone for hours, make some chicken stock, right? Or get this on the stove, and then you can scroll for 3 hours, and then you can go back and strain it, and you're good. So do it. Now, if you're really hardcore, you could then pull out these feet, which have now been braising for a long time, and you can eat all that delicious, chewy meat off of them. Let's see how it came out. Those are good feet. Oh, part of the reason why you want that gelatin, right? You want that collagen to melt, turn into gelatin, is that when we make sauce out of stocks, the gelatin is what gives body and viscosity to our sauces. So when we make sauces from this, we make what are called reduction sauces. We boil them down, we cook out the water, but the gelatin stays behind, and that gives you that great body and what we call mouth feel, which is a term that actually makes me go like, ugh, but mouth feel's a good thing in sauces. Okay, so that's why we use things like necks, backs, wings, and feet if you can get them. All right, people, what else can I tell you about chicken stock? I think that's it. I've exhausted the topic. I've exhausted myself. But stay tuned because we have a lot more great content coming up. Now, you know what you need to do now, right? You need to click down there, subscribe, like, share, all that stuff. And in the comments, I want you to tell me what you want to learn, right? So you let me know what you want to know or something like that. But tell me, talk to me. You're all very good at making comments on Instagram and TikTok, so I think you can do it here too. You can type. You're good at it. Okay, folks, thanks so much for joining me here in the Chef Smarty Pants Academy, and we'll see you soon. Nice to meet you.